scoring at Bergman, puts it up and scores! Touchdown, Michigan! Here comes the Heisman! And listen to this joint go wild.
I've been season ticket holder for 48 years.
We're on the 35-yard line right off the aisle.
I went to a lot of 1 and 10 and actually 1 0 and 11, I believe, in the 70s.
Hayden Fry came my sophomore year in college. So it was this kind of excitement that took over.
He'd resurrected a couple other programs, so we were certainly hoping he could do the same thing here.
Iowa football was insignificant from the 60s up to the 70s. Just an afterthought.
It ended up being like 19 years of non-winning seasons.
They were building a new mall in town, I can remember, and on the ply board over the windows, people had spray painted, "Go Hawks, beat somebody."
I was obviously real young when my dad was coaching here, so growing up I came to about every football game there was here, and they still had 55,000 people coming even though they hadn't had a winning season.
I had been here before with Forrest Evashevsky, and at that time we won the Big Ten championship, and so I knew that it could happen.
Hayden Fry changed the culture in Iowa City. He said it's okay to want to win again.
He created an expectation in Iowa that said we're going to win, and we're going to win big, and we're going to win a lot.
In 1978, the seeds of an Iowa football revival were planted when athletic director Bump Elliott went outside the Hawkeye family and tabbed North Texas State head coach Hayden Fry as the newest head man in Iowa City.
We'd hired 2 coaches before, and we weren't very successful. I said, you know, you're probably the last coach I could ever hire, so you better be good. No, I didn't say you better be good, but I felt that.
He's 4 months older than I am. We were born in the same small town in Texas, and the same doctor delivered both of us. We were looking at a film, and all of a sudden I said, "What was the score of that game?" He said, "Well, Iowa got beat about 40 points. I said, "Did you see the amount of people that were at that ball game?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Just think what it's going to be like if we can win."
Anytime that the Hawkeyes made a first down, the whole crowd would stand up and applaud. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what they'd do if they scored a touchdown. At Iowa, you might have 4 or possibly 5 youngsters a year that could play winning football in the Big Ten. So out of necessity, you have to recruit nationwide. And we go back to Pennsylvania, we go back to Texas, we went to Ohio, we went to Nebraska, and that's the way we built a winner.
They came from North Texas State, and they knew what it took to win. He had success there with not a great big program, you know. And he brought a lot of those ideas and all of his coaching staff with him.
My dad, he said, if you're going to be successful, you've got to surround yourself with winners. So as a coach, I never hired an assistant coach in my life unless I was completely convinced that he was motivated to become a head coach.
Step into him. Head back and fly.
Half of the guys on our staff became head coaches. On offense, we had Bill Snyder, Donnie Patterson, and of course, Kirk Ferentz. And on defense, we had Barry Alvarez, Dan McCarney, and Bobby Stoops.
You look at that coaching staff and you just shake your head because we didn't really know what we had.
They were very positive and very success-oriented. I could sense it in them. And so I had faith that they would be able to turn the program around.
My dad had played at the University of Wisconsin, so I was familiar with the Big Ten. But I really didn't know a lot about the University of Iowa. Coach Fry came to see me on one of the worst days of the winter. He came knocking on our door right at 6:30, just like he promised. And after that, I really made my mind up to be a Hawkeye.
A lot of our best players weren't highly recruited. Chuck Long being an example of that.
I grew up in Big Ten country, but I grew up in the backyard of Northwestern and the University of Illinois. I had no idea where Iowa City, Iowa was and what kind of football that they played out there.
Chuck Long was a winning but unspectacular high school quarterback at Wheaton North, 30 miles outside of Chicago.
Barry Alvarez was the one that recruited him. We got a call from Hayden, and he'd been out looking at other quarterbacks, and it didn't look good. So he talked to Barry and said, Barry, call Chuck Long up and tell him he's our guy.
Hayden had a special quality of just salesmanship. He knew how to sell. You just felt like, you know, something special is brewing here.
Fry earned a degree in psychology from Baylor, and that knowledge was put into action with his new pupils.
You inherit a group of young men that have had their tails kicked, told they were losers, and frankly, from a psychological standpoint, those kind of people are the easiest people in the world because they're hungry, they want to win, they want to show people they're wrong. The first game we played at Kinnick Stadium, we came out in a formation with only one back in the backfield. The rest were spread out across the field. The crowd at Kinnick Stadium stood up and applauded before we even snapped the ball.
We were one of the first ones to really start to change the image in the Big Ten. You know, having the tight end stand up so he can see coverages and see blitzes coming. That was a unique thing back then.
I spent 3 nights every fall just talking about this is what it takes to win. This is what it takes to lose. Now, you can do these things over here listed under how to lose. You just can't be on my football team.
In his early years, they went down and played at Oklahoma. And they played the Sooners pretty tough, but they lost the game.
Players were coming off the field, and Iowa fans were clapping and patting him on the shoulder saying how great they played. And Hayden Fry said, the first person I see smile, I'm going to slap him across the face.
People are actually started having faith that we can be a good team. This coach is actually pointing us in the right direction.
In 1981, the program went from Punchline to Pasadena. The first Big Ten representative in the Rose Bowl, not named Michigan or Ohio State since the 1967 season.
You're talking now 18, 19 straight years without having a winning season, and then all of a sudden we're in the Rose Bowl.
Hayden Fry knew after the 1981 season, I think, what was in store. Because after that season, I remember him telling me, we're going to go to a bowl game every year now.
You talk about great upsets in the history of Iowa football. You're witnessing it right now.
After the Rose Bowl season of 1981, Iowa continued its ascent towards national stature, netting 8 wins in 1982 and 9 victories in 1983, establishing the backdrop for a behind-the-curtains battle.
I knew I had to change the attitude of the administration. I had to win over the teachers to let them know that a winning program would also help the university.
The facilities were abysmal, and he made it clear we have to change the entire culture of Iowa football.
He had a lot of foresight in, hey, we need to get a bubble. And he was always one to try to keep a shovel in the ground.
He saw what was important to him and what would be important to the recruits that he brought in. And so as a result, I think probably he pushed that hard.
He had some resistance because when we talked about the indoor facility, nobody stepped up and said, hey, we need that.
It just came down to Hayden saying to the Iowa administration and the Board of Regents, do you want to win?
I demanded, because I've been offered quite a few jobs around the country, that if we didn't get an indoor workout facility, that I was going to leave.
It had a little grandstand approach to it, but that was legitimate. You couldn't wait till you'd won every game before they did all that kind of stuff.
In 1984, Iowa broke ground on the indoor practice bubble, for which Fry had pined. And that fall, the Hawkeyes entered the season ranked 12th in the AP poll.
You feel a lot of pressure that expectations are so high. We're going to win the Rose Bowl this year. Well, wait a minute now. We have 11 ball games we have to play, and those other teams aren't just going to lay down.
The Hawkeyes stumbled to the finish line, winning just 1 of their final 4 regular season games. A 7-4-1 Iowa team accepted an invitation to the Freedom Bowl in Anaheim, where it met another team that failed to meet preseason expectations, the Texas Longhorns.
That game was special to him. He was at SMU. He was at North Texas. He was always the little brother to everything at Texas.
The motivation was there, and the players felt it.
He's basically saying that Texas thinks that they're better than you.
I don't know if there were 15, 20,000 people, because before the game started, it was raining hard, and it continued.
Long wants it all. Downfield, and it's caught. Touchdown, Iowa. Unbelievable.
We had a great game plan, and thinking to myself, is it really going this well, and can it keep going? And it did.
Looking for his 5th touchdown pass, and it's there to Helverson. Touchdown, Iowa.
Chuck Long threw 6 touchdown passes in Iowa's 55-17 rout. A bold response to his coach's ulterior motives.
You've never seen a happier man in your life. That was a dream to beat Texas.
What a night for Chuck Long and the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Chuck Long had a decision to make, and would he turn pro or would he come back for his 5th year?
The bowl game victory, the way that he threw the ball, it would have been perfect springboard to go on to the NFL.
It all started on the sideline at the end of the Freedom Bowl. And Hayden came over to me and said, hey, Charlie, you got to come back. Look at all these guys that are coming back.
We were actually roommates, and we all voted under the table that he's staying with us or we're going to beat the crap out of him.
I remember everyone being on the edge of their seat, not being real sure what Chuck might do. You just knew if he was going to be back, it would be really a special year.
There were no close seconds. Everybody knew the best college quarterback was Chuck Long at that point.
When Chuck called a news conference, it was so important to Iowa fans. We took our live truck down to Iowa City.
Probably the most important reason why I'm coming back to the University of Iowa is another chance to go to the Rose Bowl.
I wanted to come back with those guys. I didn't want to miss it, I didn't want to miss all the fun. All the schools that had a Heisman-type player, they did these promo videos. Well, Raiders of the Lost Ark was the promo video for me. They had a Heisman Trophy from Niall Kinnick, and they put the Heisman Trophy somewhere in the woods. They had the camera by the Heisman, so they had to climb over like I found the Heisman Trophy.
We're not only talking about winning a conference title now, we're talking about a possible national championship. All of this was on the table now.
The importance of a trusty place kicker for a national championship contender cannot be overstated. But the Hawkeyes would rely on a walk-on transfer in his first season at Iowa.
His #1 kicker will be Rob Hoagland.
I was recruited out of high school by Michigan and Ohio State to be a kicker and a punter, and both of those schools had asked me to choose one or the other, and I said I wanted to do both. But I ended up going to Miami of Ohio as a walk-on, and it just wasn't a fit for me. I went out to visit Iowa and said, yeah, this is a place that I need to go. And so I transferred in January of 1984 and tried to walk on then, and I got cut. I ended up entering the field goal kicking contest for the intramural program and won it. So I called Coach Jackson, and Carl said, hey, Rob, I think we need you to come back out.
After 2 lopsided wins over unheralded opponents to start the 1985 season, Iowa took to the road, traveling to Ames to face bitter rival Iowa State.
It pours rain. I approach the kickoff, get ready to drill it down the field. I slip and fall. I kicked the ball 10 yards. We recovered the onside kick.
You're not going to see that very often.
I remember looking up at my dad in the crowd. He looked at me like, what was that?
Harmon, nice move. Cuts back to the inside. Touchdown.
The only thing that struck me is how powerful the offense was in all 3 games, and especially at Iowa State. They just rolled. It's really the big question about this Iowa team, the defense. How good were they going to be? And they showed that they were good.
We were calling the Associated Press in New York, and they didn't have all the votes in. And finally, when they did, they said, you're going to be #1 this week, but you can't release anything until we release it.
I just remember somebody coming into the locker room and saying, we're #1 in the nation, and everybody kind of gathering around and looking at the polls.
Have you ever before been the coach of a #1 ranked team?
Only in my dreams.
Little old Iowa, all of a sudden, we're vaulted to #1 in the nation. And now, that was a whole different level for Iowa football.
Iowa's first Big Ten game was Michigan State. The 3 previous years, the average margin of victory in the annual tussle was 4 points. And there was no greater example of that parity than the conclusion of the 1984 contest.
We had a great comeback in that game, and we went for the 2-point to win it. And I kept the ball. It was close. I thought I got in.
They said the ball did not cross the plane of the end zone. Oh, what a disheartening end to a sensational finish.
Chuck had scored, but the referees didn't see it that way, and we lost the game by 1 point.
There was revenge in mine. I think you hear about that, people saying, oh, there's no revenge, and no, there is. In sports, there is.
And now, the #1 ranked football team in the land. It is the Hawkeyes of Iowa.
Mike Flagg, they really tried to gang tackle him at about the 10, 9, 8-yard line.
Tight end Flagg is open, and he bullies his way to a touchdown. What a second effort.
I think that spoke to the determination and the will of that 1985 team.
Towards the second quarter, they started running a bend back play, which we never did fully adjust to, and that is what kept them in the game. Lorenzo White was running that play to perfection. That was the play that gave them the go-ahead touchdown as well.
Turns the corner, and he's got a touchdown. Michigan State has scored with 4:06 to go.
It's my job to take us down and win this football game. And that was the reason why I came back.
With just over 4 minutes remaining and trailing 31-28, Iowa took possession on its own 21.
We knew we had one drive in 4 minutes. It was really a time where we really felt bonded as a team.
Chuck Long led Iowa deep inside Michigan State territory in the final minute and faced a do-or-tie 3rd down call from the Spartans' 2-yard line with 31 seconds remaining.
This is so similar to a year ago when Iowa failed on a 2-point conversion.
Hayden says, okay, Charlie, I want you to call an ISO play. Don't tell anybody. Just fake it to Ronnie and just roll around to the right and score. And I looked at him, I said, Coach, we're out of timeouts. What if I don't get in? He was so mad at me, he said, Charlie, trust me, you're gonna get in.
Some of those other guys up front aren't the best actors, so it's better off that he's the only one that knows.
I still remember Ed Podolak hearing him yell, bootleg, bootleg. He was running through the end zone, and all I had was my arms up in the air and just wanted to give him a big hug.
I said, Chuck, why did you hold the ball up over your head going in? He said, Coach, I wanted to make sure that the officials saw the ball this year.
It was that seminal victory of, okay, we got what it takes to really be good.
Do you recall the #1, #2 week?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just amazing. Iowa versus Michigan at home.
The Big Ten at that point was still pretty much Ohio State and Michigan.
At work, it was hard to concentrate on because you wanted to think about the football game.
Everywhere you went, people wanted to talk to you about the Michigan game. There was a buildup like we had never seen in Iowa City.
An annual game suddenly became a national story as #2 and undefeated Michigan traveled to Iowa City to meet the #1 Hawkeyes.
Growing up as a kid, you see Nebraska playing the Oklahomas or Alabama playing Penn State. We never were physically part of something like that. You always saw that on TV.
Brent Musburger came to town. They came to a big I-Club meeting and addressed a sellout crowd.
I honestly think that if Michigan wins a game tomorrow, that Bo Jackson will wind up winning the Heisman Trophy. But Chuck Long could really jump up tomorrow.
We knew all of these national broadcasters from other games. The difference is they were there for the other team. They were never there for us.
I had a political science professor who, after class one day, looked at me and said, so we're going to beat the Wolverines, right?
I had 3 midterms, and I made a conscious decision that week to basically focus on the football game. And I knew that I'm going to remember this game a lot longer than I'm going to remember my 3 midterms.
I changed the guards and centers in pregame warm-up, and the guards are snapping the ball to the punters. bounced them on the ground over their head. Coach Schembechler, he comes down there and he's watching. And finally he says, Fry, you're not going to let that guy snap during the game, are you? And I don't even look at him. I said, Coach Schembechler, we don't plan on punting tonight, and walk off.
For the first time since the edifice was built in 1929, lights were erected to illuminate Kinnick Stadium.
The thing I'll never forget is coming out in the stadium for that ball game.
And here in Iowa City, the mood is like that which precedes a heavyweight championship fight.
Just the electricity, the energy that you felt. I'm not sure I've ever felt it before or since. They had given up 1 or 2 touchdowns going into the game. So, you know, we knew it was going to be tough to move the football.
The big plays in the game were 7, 8-yard plays. They weren't down the field big plays.
We had a special play where I was a fullback, went down the sideline and caught a pass, and I got hit so hard. That's probably the hardest I've ever been hit.
The defenses controlled the early going. Midway through the second quarter, Iowa finally mustered a drive deep into enemy territory.
It was a down-and-out route in a circle around the back of the end zone. So we ran it to perfection, and I caught it and got a foot down and sprayed the water, and they called it no good.
The official, working the end line, came across and said no catch.
I just went crazy. Got up, screaming and hollered at the official and told him I was in bounds, and I just kind of got a glassy stare.
He's got the ball. Watch the foot. No question about it. That should have been a touchdown.
They missed it. They missed it. If you were looking at it now, they'd go up to the replay booth. It'd be 10 seconds. Hey, guys, touchdown. Kick the extra point.
But we didn't have replay back then, and so we ended up getting 3 points, and that's it.
Back then, the referees would stop the game for excessive crowd noise. Jim Harbaugh got to go up under center, step back, go under center, step back, until the crowd quieted down.
You're the visiting quarterback telling our fans to be quiet. Not going to happen, right?
I can almost hear the whole state of Iowa right now.
We're playing football. This isn't ballroom dancing. It's football.
Now the PA announcer will tell the crowd.
The referee signaled him to go back into under the center, and he said it's not going to get any better, basically. He called it, and he ended up throwing a touchdown.
White prize for the end zone. He's got the touchdown.
As Coach Fry said, you got to look at our whole defense for about 3 minutes.
I credit Jim Harbaugh for being a crybaby at the right time.
Holding a precarious 10-9 lead with just under 8 minutes remaining, Michigan began to bleed the clock and faced a critical 3rd and 2 with 6 minutes remaining in the game.
It was not one of my better games overall. I felt a little unease out there, and it wasn't until that 4th quarter that I started getting back into my rhythm.
And Larry figured they're going to give the ball to Morris, and they're going to run behind this particular side because these are their best blockers.
I did something I normally don't do. I actually went parallel to the line of scrimmage and then up the field. I'm grabbing him, and I can hear the fans just screaming.
Larry's station, their All-American linebacker, just brutalizes him.
So it really was like the play of my career at Iowa. I just wanted to be able to give Chuck enough time to do what he does and, you know, win games in the last minute.
This game started late in the afternoon, but now the lights had taken over, and it was a new atmosphere in Kinnick Stadium.
We got in our huddle, and we were just looking at each other saying, if the defense can make this happen, we are not going to let them down or anybody down.
Our goal was to get Rob Howland close. Yeah, sure, we would have liked to score a touchdown, but all we needed was a field goal.
One of the first things that comes to my mind was the dropped interception by Brad Cochran from Michigan. I mean, he had the ball right in his hand. That would have been a game ender right there.
We ran it, we threw it, and we ate it up enough where we got it in field goal range, and at the same time, we wanted to use clock.
Once we got inside the 40, I started hearing the chatter on the sideline, and it was, we're going to get it close so we can kick it and end it. And that's when I knew, okay, I need to get my head right.
Down to the very last play of the game, and what a great way for it to end.
A battle between the top 2 teams in the country came down to one final play. Michigan nursed a 10-9 lead, and Rob Howland faced a 29-yard kick that, one way or another, would etch his name into Iowa football history.
We point blank told them,
you're not going to miss this. You're going to make it. But we had some private moments about making this kick or else.
He had this routine where he would always stand over the tee and do a prayer before every kick.
I wasn't shy about what I was doing. I knew in that situation that this wasn't going to be something I could do by myself. I come up because, you sort of have a sense around you of, okay, the timeout's going to be over.
Michigan could call a timeout right here and try to increase the pressure on him, and they do just that.
I was pretty cocky back then, I will say. I turn, I go look to his sideline of Bo, and I'm like, it ain't gonna mean a thing. So I was gonna have some fun with this.
For Hayden Fry and the Hawkeyes, it's a nervous 2 seconds.
It felt forever. It felt like a month. We were all pacing. I remember pacing on the sideline.
I remember it just getting quiet. I remember hearing the thud and the crowds erupting. You're number one in the country. You just beat Michigan, the Wolverines, right? And I remember thinking, yeah. Next thing I know, Mark Vlasic and I are in the bottom of the pile. And it's not like 6 or 7 guys. We're talking 40, 50 guys. And we started yelling like, off, off, off. You couldn't hear yourself, though.
What a victory! And they've exploded! They're wild out of the field!
It was the most emotional that I've ever. I even get emotional now thinking about it, but incredibly emotional win.
Right now, I think listening to it is the most beautiful sound I've ever heard.
I don't have any shame in admitting. I mean, I bawled like a baby.
The hair on the back of your neck standing up definitely happened after that. It's just one of those, oh my gosh, we really did this thing.
Hayden Fry, I think he went into the press conference and just gave out a whoo.
In fact, I'm going to vote for his #1 tomorrow.
I think it was such an important game, not only for the University of Iowa, but for the state of Iowa.
Farming drives the economy here, has forever. During the 1980s, inflation came, interest rates rose to 15, 16%, and caused tremendous problems for the farmer.
Whole communities like this one in Iowa are feeling the pressure of the plunging farm economy.
That's when, you started feeling the crisis happening.
In the mid-1980s, the lethal combination of inflation and collapsed commodity and land prices wiped out nearly 20,000 family farms in Iowa.
There was a tragedy not far from here where a banker was actually shot by someone who had lost their farm. And so, I mean, that makes things very, very real and very human.
I was raised on the farm, and I wanted to do something for them, and I had a gentleman that worked with me who came up with the idea, ANF, America Needs Farmers. And so I said, let's make a decal.
Hayden has a great sense of timing and did it at the right time, and it made a big impact.
You could be in the coffee shops or at a Farm Bureau meeting, and they would talk about, did you see them talking about ANF and the stories they did? You'd start to think, maybe somebody really cares about what's happening to us.
After thrashing Northwestern behind 6 Chuck Long touchdown passes, Iowa, sporting the new ANF decal, stared down the biggest test remaining on its Big Ten schedule.
Here we go. They'd been #1 for about 5 weeks in a row at this point. But the Buckeyes in Columbus, I mean, Iowa they hadn't beaten them in centuries.
It was the most unusual atmosphere in that they were waiting on us. We're #1. I'm sure they're not used to Iowa being #1 coming into their place.
That felt good because we felt like we were really the bad guys coming into town to take something from them.
The morning of the game, their local paper, basically one of the writers in his infinite wisdom wrote an article about how their secondary was just going to get picked apart. So I figured, oh, that's not good.
The Iowa Hawkeyes.
I'll never forget walking on that field and standing next to Rudy Hayes. And it just hit me the magnitude of what we were getting ready to do. As much as the Michigan game was special, for me, it was my favorite game because of playing at Columbus.
It was a monsoon. This thing was coming down hard,
You'd think with the rainstorm, people would have left or quieted down. So on top of the rain pounding on your helmets and making noise, the crowd was deafening. I don't think the center could even hear Chuck right behind him. He said, I'd try an audible. He said the line couldn't hear me. So, you know, we really were stuck in some plays that he knew this isn't going to work, but I can't change it.
And his receivers were covered, and he is hauled down.
Ohio State did a lot of disguising defenses, which really kind of bothered Chuck and bothered all of us.
And Chuck Long is just off. He really is.
I think Chuck, for the first time, probably thought maybe the Heisman Trophy pressure was getting a little intense.
Down the right side, and it's intercepted again.
Maybe it was over-intensity on my part. It's hard to explain, but I remember being more rigid going into that game.
I had re-aggravated a stinger that I had suffered during the Michigan game. I mean, I was in so much pain during the game, I just couldn't do what I normally would do. They ran up the middle one time. I had to take on this guard, and they ran right up the middle for like a 60-yard gain.
Daylight breaks free. He's going to go for a touchdown. He's got time.
Trailing 15-7 in the fourth quarter, Iowa's Jay Norvell intercepted an Ohio State pass and returned it to the Buckeye 19-yard line. 3 plays later, Hayden Fry went all in on a 4th and 1 at the Ohio State 10.
Harmon tries to go over the top, cannot make it. Ohio State ball.
For a team that usually found a way to overcome, we just couldn't that day.
They were number 1 for 5 straight weeks. And they have finally fallen.
We had one pass that Chuck threw to me in the back of the end zone, and the defensive back came and hit me, and big caption in the Sports Illustrated, splish splash, Iowa took a bath.
After the game, I remember reading accounts of the secondary and the secondary coach taking that paper and throwing it on the ground in the locker room in the victory celebration and stamping on the paper.
As much as the Michigan game was the high point relation-wise I've ever had, that was the low. I let the program down. I said I took that one pretty hard.
The best thing I can say about Hayden's attire is it's unique. You're not going to have any fashionistas look at Hayden Fry's outfits and say that's the way you need to dress a football coach.
Who else back in 1979 was wearing white pants, wearing their sunglasses in all their interviews? You know, Coach had it going on.
I bought back some shades for the kids, and they all put them on. Like, look, real Coach Fry.
He was Texas bling before there was Texas bling. And in Iowa, there's not a whole lot of that.
After that beating at Ohio State, we had to take our frustrations out on somebody.
Following its first loss, Iowa looked to right the ship against a stout Illinois squad that had tied Michigan the week before.
Illinois was one of the preseason favorites along with us, and I don't think anyone could have predicted, even us, the way that game would start.
He throws the bomb downfield. He has Rabbit tricked again, and it's another touchdown! I can't believe it! Another touchdown!
Hayden could get in the groove like nobody else.
Ronnie Harmon is off to the races. It is 27-0, and we're still at 4:36 to go in this first quarter.
All of a sudden, we're up, 35-0 in the first quarter. I think even we were surprised. I mean, we were kind of looking up there, wow.
Chuck Long. It's 6. And we got a blowout.
Going up 49-0 on any Big Ten team is unbelievable, but that Illinois team was a very good team.
The final score was an unbelievable 59-0 Iowa victory.
I was doing the press box PA. I made the probably not too smart a comment to Iowa's football team now has a bigger scoring margin against Illinois than Iowa's wrestling team had against Illinois last year.
Next for Iowa, a trip to West Lafayette to face a talented Purdue squad led by future NFL quarterback Jim Everett.
The marquee billing for that game was Chuck Long versus Jim Everett to see which quarterback could get the better of the other guy.
Harmon with a great catch.
We were going out at halftime, and some fans yelled that Wisconsin beat Ohio State.
And we were like, ooh, Ohio State lost. This could really set us up for the Rose Bowl.
I think we did get more conservative against Purdue because we had heard Ohio State had gotten beat.
Thanks to Iowa easing off the gas pedal, Purdue tied the game midway through the fourth quarter. With 70 seconds remaining, Rob Houtland appeared to be the hero again, drilling a 25-yard field goal to give Iowa a 27-24 lead.
Jim Everett drives them all the way back down the field to the 20-yard line. They have no timeouts left.
With 30 seconds left, they throw the ball into the flat, and instead of running out of bounds, he tries to get a couple of yards out of the field. And I held him up in the air for a while to let some time run off the clock.
Everett quickly stops it, and time runs out on the scoreboard. It is over.
It was shocking. We were as much in awe as the Purdue fans.
Coach Burnett was chasing people across the field, and we just, let's get out of there before anyone changes this thing.
Ohio State's loss to Wisconsin, coupled with Iowa's win at Purdue, meant that the Hawkeyes could clinch their first outright Big Ten title since 1958, with a win over Minnesota in the season finale at Kinnick Stadium.
There were roses in the parking lot before the game. I remember sweeping a light covering of snow off the field, which doesn't happen too often at Kinnick Stadium, and then Iowa came out and just took care of business.
In the third quarter, there was a stoppage in play, and the fans started chanting Rose Bowl, Rose Bowl, Rose Bowl, real quietly, and then the whole stadium was doing it. And I just remember looking around and saying, you know what, we're going to do this.
I remember somebody in the stands gave me a rose, and I wouldn't put it down. I kept it the whole time.
Look at the scene here at Kinnick Stadium.
The game is over. Iowa's on its way to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. The fans are celebrating. And
I'll never forget it, looking up at my dad in the stands and pointing. We got the ring, you know, Big Ten championship.
We look forward to participating in the Rose Bowl, and I guarantee you we'll do a better job this time than we did last time.
I know you will. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
To see the representatives run the Rose Bowl there and welcoming them officially to Pasadena for January 1. Something very special for everybody in Iowa City.
Greatest quarterback in America right here.
Iowans thought Chuck had a great chance to win the Heisman Trophy, and they certainly felt he deserved the Heisman Trophy.
I think Chuck definitely had a chance to win. We thought it in our heads that he was going to win.
The top two candidates for the Heisman Trophy were Chuck Long and Auburn running back Bo Jackson.
I went on the elevator going down to the hour-long show. That's the very first time I felt like, ooh, I do have a chance to win this. My future wife at the time was with me, and she said, you know, you may win this. Do you have something you're going to say? I said, oh, gosh, I better put something together pretty quick.
In the closest vote in the history of this trophy, the winner is, from Auburn University, Bo Jackson.
For about 25 years, I was more famous for being second. So every year, they would bring my name up because it was the closest vote ever.
Jackson edged along by a mere 45 points, with each player splitting the 6 regions. Long was honored as the winner of both the Maxwell and Davy O'Brien Awards.
When we were in the Japan Bowl, we were standing on the sideline together, and Bo Jackson took a pitch for the other team and went 80 yards. And I told Chuck at that moment, Bo deserved to win that Heisman. Having grown up with a father that played in the Rose Bowl and being an Iowa fan through all the years and understanding the history, I really soaked it in.
Iowa's second Rose Bowl trip in 5 seasons, this time against Pac-10 champion UCLA, provided a source of excitement for a struggling state.
You had heard stories about guys saying, you know, I'm going to mortgage my farm, I'm going to mortgage my equipment, because we're going to watch that game.
4 years previous, the Hawkeyes' 1982 Rose Bowl trip was capped by a 28-0 loss to Washington, and Hayden Fry was determined to change both the itinerary and the outcome in his return to Pasadena.
I was a freshman that first time, and it sort of seemed like a trip to Oz. Honestly, I think Coach Fry remembered that, and we weren't going to be involved in all those extra trips.
I'll never forget walking out on the grass before the game and really realizing that this is a lifelong dream that was going to finally come.
When we lined up for the first play, I had this surreal feeling like I was still looking around at the stadium and not focused in on the game, and that made me nervous.
that ball went over the punter's head. That was like a gift from God to go down there and really take it to him.
I think Ronnie's play, the first fumble, was critical.
It's a cutthroat game, right? And that would have been the first move to put them down.
Good catch by Ronnie.
We had 4 fumbles in the first half of the game by Ronnie Harmon, who fumbled only once during the whole season.
I just remember going to the bench, and every time we would sit down for a few plays, defense goes right back in. I was like, well, who fumbled the ball this time? Coach McCarney, I think, he was more upset than anybody. He was just screaming on hold the ball. Coach Donahue said that they watched some Michigan State film and that they ran the same play.
Larry Station was actually injured, and he didn't tell anybody.
The ball ran up the middle, and I remember making a tackle on him. I just felt a tweak in my back, and as the game went on, it became progressively more painful.
Two Bruins touchdowns late in the second quarter gave UCLA a 24-10 halftime advantage.
It came out that they were looking at one of our D linemen's footwork, I think, and how he's at his feet was how he was going to be moving, so they were countering that.
It's too far.
They knew exactly what defense we were running against them. That's why they did so well against our defense, is because of the tip. They made that true freshman ball an All-American that day.
It was late in the game, and Chuck, as he always does, put it right there.
So father and son can share the same Rose Bowl memory.
My father was there to console me, and he said, son, you tied me. And I said, what do you mean I tied you? And he said, you scored a touchdown in the Rose Bowl, and I scored a touchdown in the Rose Bowl. And I said, tied you heck, yours was 8 yards, mine was 13. And with which he said, well, at least we won.
It was so untypical of how we played all year. Even to this day, it's just hard to fathom that we could play the way that we did that day.
You realize what the score would have been if they'd had all the fun and been out honky-tonking? Shoot.
I felt bad for Hayden. I really did, because I know he wanted that game. And that was one of his best chances to get one.
I just remember going back to the hotel that evening and kind of pouting or whatever, and I remember my wife looking at me and saying, snap out of it. You guys have had a great, great year. Just back off and appreciate that a little bit.
There aren't any heights that are too high for the Hawkeye football program. I hope that's a legacy that we left.
It had been always Ohio State and Michigan, and we had a stretch there of about 8 years where we had the best one-loss record in the Big Ten.
I recall several times coaches calling me over the years saying, how'd you guys do it at Iowa? I want to know.
Tried to get a movie with Angie Dickinson.
A lot of fans come out of the woodwork whenever I'm back in the state and talk about that year, talk about that Michigan game. We all cherish it. Same story we're going to hear all the time. But we love telling them even to this day.
After turning the corner, he said, no, we didn't win that game.
My first practice at Iowa, I kick a punt, and Hayden's walking down the sideline, and I hit him on the top of the head and knock his hat and his sunglasses off. He doesn't turn to look. He stoops down, he picks up his sunglasses, he puts his hat on, and he keeps walking down the sideline. So I run down there, and I said, Coach, listen, I'm really sorry about that. I just flat out missed that. He says, was that you that kicked that? You're pretty accurate.